What's up, guys? We are back with a new video, and I can't believe it. We're finally here. The Steam Machine price and release date has finally been revealed. Oh man, it looks like they all dropped it all at one time, and it looks like some people had got some early hands-on the game too. But this price, I don't know what I feel about this price. I don't know what I feel about this price, man. So let's look at it. We've been talking about the Steam machine for the hot little minute. So it's on Steam's website. So the Steam machine by itself, you can get the Steam machine for what? $1,049. This is without the Steam controller. God, $1,000, man. Ugh. $1,000, $1,000. Like if that's the case, well, no, because the freaking PS5 is now that price now. The PS5 Pro. So you get it with a Steam controller for 1,128, and they got a 2 terabyte, which I knew that they were going to do a 2 terabyte. The 2 terabyte one is, God, oh, the 2 terabyte one is $1,349. So do both of them have the same? Both of them have the same shit. It's just that one comes with a 2 terabyte. Yeah, it's the same specs. Man, I'm gonna join the. But shoot, man, go. Let's look at like IGN did a review for it. So let's look at their review. Uh, let's look at their review. Let's look at their review. Where's my Steam? Do they have any other information on there? They just got the wish list, right? Okay, let's look at the review for this thing. I wonder if they play any games on there. Let me go to the YouTube. Oh, Digital Foundry. Digital Foundry did a review on it. All right, let's look at Digital Foundry's review. Let's look and see what they said.
To the former and benchmarks for the latter. Owing to the hardware component crisis, Valve's beautifully tiny console-like PC is finally here. And from a form factor perspective, it's kind of irresistible. Imagine a taller Nintendo GameCube. You have some idea of how tiny this thing is, while performance falls into line quite nicely with what the Steam hardware survey defines as the quintessential mainstream gaming PC. But man, the prices are gonna hurt.
Yeah.
Starts at 1,049.
Oh, you got 1,049?
Great British pounds for the basic 512 gigabyte model.
I want to get into
an oddly specific 1,128
the Steam OS,
itself, which remains an absolutely brilliant front end.
Yeah, they added the Steam OS in there.
Everything that worked on deck works here. The difference being that the extra performance makes for a flowing, nigh-on flawless interface. So there's the experience, right, which is pretty flawless in my opinion, but then there are the quantifiables, specs and performance. And if that's your focus, yeah, obviously maybe you should be looking at the alternatives. If you're looking to upgrade your display and enhance your gaming
Let's look at the specs.
Spec-wise then, let's kick off by looking at the CPU, where we have a 6-core 12-thread AMD Zen 4 CPU clocked at up to 4.8 gigahertz. And I've seen a couple of those cores hit 4.8 gigahertz in gaming, the rest running significantly slower, likely down to the makeup of the Hawk Point 2 architecture, which has 2 full-fat Zen 4 cores, the rest Zen 4C. 30-watt TDP there, according to Valve. Then there's the GPU, RDNA 3, 28 compute units, rated clock speeds up to 2.45 gigahertz. I've seen it maxed around.
Do yourself PC build comparisons.
110 watts TDP. I can confirm now that it's definitely a pared back version of the RX 7600 based on the Navi 33 processor. 8 gigabytes of VRAM there with 16 gigabytes of DDR5 memory. Despite the memory crisis, we do still get 16 gigabytes of DDR5 system RAM, but it is just one 16 gigabyte module in the Steam machine there, not two 8 gigabyte modules in a dual channel configuration. We understand by speaking to Valve that the OG spec was dual channel, but lack of availability of 8GB SODIMMs has ruled that out. I didn't want to completely dismantle my review unit while I still needed to test it, and time was limited anyway. But Valve was kind enough to send me a couple of pictures of the main board. The board itself is tiny, almost Pico ITX-like according to Valve. And there you can see on the left image there.
Okay, I don't care about that.
CPU
Yeah,
architecture to the Steam
but I
Machine's
like
4.2
about the
processor.
board. They going into the build and
However,
everything for it.
the chip only supports PCIe 4.0 across 4 lanes connected to the GPU, not 8, limiting bandwidth with an inevitable impact to graphics performance. I can confirm that there are 8 lanes.
Dang, I wish they had it made. I wish it was 800 though.
And with that 8
They went up to 1,000.
benchmarked it in CPU limited scenarios, finding that the Ryzen 5 5600X was a fairly close match in gaming performance. And that 5600X also happens to be the entry-level CPU of choice for the AM4 DDR4 based platform, a solid budget option in the current market. So that's what I went with for most of my Steam Machine versus PC comparisons. I also used 3200 megatransfers per second DDR4. You can get faster, but this remains relatively cheap, with the emphasis on relative, obviously, in the current market. GPU.
I want to look at.
the
I want to
best
see
place there can only be
benchmarks.
one, the Radeon RX 7600. The exact same Navi 33 processor as the Steam Machine. However, with the 7600, wattages are higher and all 32 compute units are active as opposed to Steam Machine's 28. So we should expect more performance then. But of course, the RX 7600 is effectively old technology now.
Yeah, that's
RDNA
old.
free, and it's been replaced by the Radeon RX 9060 XT. Yeah, RDNA 4. Costs more, but you get a ton more performance. Rounding off the group test, I went for the Radeon RX 6600. For years, you could buy this for under $200, and it also represents the GPU I'd recommend as the lowest spec for still getting a decent experience from AAA gaming. DirectX 12 Ultimate feature set, and the value it offered back in the day was just tremendous.
PC graphics cards
It's an interesting
tested.
comparison
So
point
the
for
first
Steam
one is
Machine,
the
as it has
Steam
similar
Machine.
GPU clock speeds, the same 28 compute units. Memory bandwidth is higher on Steam Machine, and obviously the 6600 is using the RDNA 2 architecture, whereas the machine's using RDNA 3. But before we let the benchmarks roll, at the time of testing, these numbers come from a GPU driver that hasn't yet received ray tracing optimizations. However, neither had the GPU driver from our competing GPUs. And what we're really looking at here aren't the basic numbers as such, but the performance differentials. But we'll talk about ray tracing a bit later. And yes, everything here is tested under Linux, of course. We're not maxing everything out. We're choosing optimized settings, and optimized settings where specifically we've tailored them for 8GB GPUs, because this is a much more realistic choice for this class of hardware on modern games.
Golly.
Black Myth Wukong here, the numbers may look low, but that's mostly down to a weird issue with the game where the display resolution of the device connected can impact the
So 1440p is like the standard for the Steam Machine.
Settings,
that's what I wanted to look at.
So for some reason the numbers are lower than they would be in an actual gaming scenario. Even so, as I said, it is about the percentage differential.
Shit, it's not worth, like, for me, it's not worth getting it right now.
Oh, and one more thing to note before we...
I want it because of the small form factor, but, and for I to put emulators and stuff on there, but $1,000. If it was 800, I would have gotten it.
The benchmarks here were captured from Steam Machine at the same settings with VSync active. So the benchmark numbers represent full performance. The video represents what you'd actually see out of the box with Steam Machine. So with all of that in mind,
so I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting this type of performance for AAA titles. Yeah, I was expecting like 1440p. Have they tried anything in 4K?
Even so, the margin is thin.
Did they try anything in 4K? That's the crazy.
The Steam Machine itself is 11%.
Let's see benchmarks for the
one I
Cyberpunk.
tested here. Let's move on to Cyberpunk 2077, the Phantom Liberty now, specifically in the black market at the beginning of the expansion.
1440p, 60 frames. It's about PS5 performance settings.
Performance mode settings here, and we're running at native 1440p. And as expected, the RX 7600 moves ahead. I'm clocking a 17 percentage point increase for the desktop GPU over Valve's integrated alternative. Meanwhile, the RX 6600 offers about 90% of Steam Machine GPU performance. 9060 XT is a good 40 percentage points ahead in this test.
Did they try anything? Was they able to run anything in 4K?
Steam Machine. The overall average
Oh,
is
Resident Evil is gonna
using the frame
fucking
rate
kill
count.
this thing.
And you can kind of see the same thing happening here in Resident Evil Requiem.
Yeah,
9060
I was saying
XT is
Resident
actually
Evil's gonna.
78% faster than the Steam Machine GPU here, but again, the spiky frame times result in some unattractive gameplay. So yeah, higher settings, frame rate caps, that's the ticket. The RX 7600 is
Optimized
16%
low
faster
settings.
than Steam Machine here, 55 FPS on Valve hardware versus 64 FPS on AMD's discrete GPU. And it's a 9-point advantage.
So
for
is
Steam
technically
Machine
the
over
PS5
RX
Pro
7600.
stronger than this
Forza
thing?
Horizon 6 now, 1440p on lower end optimized settings, basically aimed at 8GB GPU.
Oh, Forza Horizon.
without ray
All these are
tracing in play.
1440p.
Here,
Optimized
the
low
RX
settings.
7600 is 12 points clear of Steam Machine,
did.
with the 9060 XT 70% ahead. Meanwhile, the RX 6600 is only a couple of percent away from Steam Machines. But something's wrong here. You may notice that the frame times are pretty awful on all cards, and that often the game seems to be moving in slow motion. This
Yep.
isn't how Forza Horizon 6 is supposed to run, and perhaps a reminder that we aren't running under Windows, and levels of incompatibility may be a thing occasionally on Linux. Oh, and one more thing. As I said, we're using the 16GB version of the 9060 XT in these tests, and it exhibits the same issue. So it's definitely not a memory limitation. Doom the Dark Ages next, a game that uses ray tracing.
That
as
game should
standard.
run okay.
Optimized settings here tailored for 8GB.
Dang, 1440p again, man.
There are a bunch of different benchmarks. to
30
choose from, and I'm
frames?
using the Abyssal Forest stage as it's the most demanding in the bunch. RX 7600 here is only 9% faster than Steam Machine. 9060 XT though, a gigantic 76% ahead. RDNA 4 really does have very, very decent ray tracing capabilities. Of course, the RDNA 3 architecture had RT improvements over RDNA 2, so here the results skew in favor of Steam Machine. A typical 10 to 11% lead transforms into a 17-point advantage for the Valve hardware. Finally, Crimson Desert, another ray tracing title, though its use of actual hardware RT is more limited. Optimized settings are demanding clearly with just a 27 frames per second average on Steam
They did.
Machine at 1440p.
They did ray
But do
tracing.
remember, this is native resolution and upscaling options are available, and the Valve hardware.
That's- ooh, they
will
did
get
Steam Machine
FSR
versus
4 support
PS5.
At some point. Here I'm seeing the Valve box. So, towards the end of the review period, Valve did release a new SteamOS with upgraded ray tracing performance. So I had the chance to compare before with after. It didn't make any difference for me compared to the prior driver in Doom the Dark Ages on our selected settings. Similarly, Crimson Desert only saw an improvement within margin of error, like sub
Yeah,
1%.
so no
On a
change.
couple of other benchmarks, I added ray tracing where there was none before. So in Forza Horizon 6, I kept the same settings and added medium RTGI and used FSR3 quality mode to improve the depressed frame rate level. End result is a 6 percentage point gain, though the problems in general performance still remain, clearly. Finally, with Cyberpunk 2077, I kept the PS5 performance mode settings, added FSR3
that helped it
performance
out.
mode, and turned on RT reflections
little bit,
and RT
not much,
lighting
though.
at the medium setting. These are what I would describe as our optimized ray tracing selection for this game. This delivered a 9.7% frame rate boost, which is certainly significant, though we are still under 30 FPS at times on this one.
That's what I say. He still be
Yes,
under
it's a
30
demanding
FPS
scene,
though.
But we are at FSR
That's-
3
yeah.
performance mode there, internal 720p. So yeah, still just a touch too demanding for the Steam Machine there. Another takeaway here is that the improvements are context sensitive. Some areas of the
I
bench
wonder
show
if
no
it's
improvements
the
at all.
CPU.
Others show dramatic improvements, demonstrating that comparing depending on the game.
I thought performance
Now
would have
let's
been a
talk about the
little
CPU,
bit
and
better.
Here's where things get a little tricky. In most games, you'll be GPU limited most of the time, but when you do hit CPU limits, it's keenly felt, often with very
I'm about to
spiky
say.
frame times. It's not great.
Yeah.
And the CPU in Steam Machine is based on the Hawk Point 2 architecture, which is relatively weak. Relatively as in compared to what many consider to be good entry point gaming
Damn.
CPUs. It's further compounded by something else I
Damn,
tested
man.
and confirmed with Valve when I spoke to them. Typically, CPUs are paired with 2 memory modules to give dual channel bandwidth. And the more bandwidth the CPU has, the better it performs in gaming, certainly in CPU limited scenarios. Valve couldn't source 8GB SODI, so instead of
Dude, I thought the performance would have been like
16GB
somewhat better. Like,
and there will be performance implications.
I don't know what I was looking for, like, but you know,
this means, check out this
as I say again, man, the thing is, like, I'm not going to use this machine for AAA titles, most likely. I'm definitely going to use it for emulators, though.
In dual channel. Outside of Steam Machine testing, we're using the RX 7600 here as it's.
Oh, is this where you compare it to PS5 shit?
Valve offering.
Oh no, this is the CPU still.
The crappy
BFC
compares to desktop parts. So the conclusion is pretty clear. Steam Machine delivers what I'd call ballpark entry-level PC gaming performance, or at least entry-level based on a decent mainstream experience. The CPU should provide better results than a console running the same workloads, while the GPU sits at a kind of midpoint between the RX 6600 and 7600, as predicted. It'll run older games just fine.
So that's the thing, dude. The PS5 Pro is stronger.
While the GPU
Why would I buy this if I can just get a PS5 Pro?
RX 6600 and 7600, as predicted.
Well, aside from it being a computer, because like that's the only other thing that I was gonna buy it for is for putting emulators on it and whatnot. But I don't know how well the CPU will be able to run the emulators
for the benchmarks. Just like a console, you'll need to tweak settings to taste for good performance. And I'm wondering the extent to which developers will use Valve's APIs and deliver ready-made dialed-in settings out of the box. Digital Foundry specializes in optimized settings, lower-end optimized settings for 8GB cards, and judged by that criteria, perfectly creditable experiences are possible. So bearing in mind the form factor, the use case, how does Steam Machine compare to a console? We got a wealth of information on PC titles running at PS5 equivalent settings, so let's get straight into it. And we'll start by revisiting the Crimson Desert CPU test on matched settings, and that includes using VSync as PlayStation 5 does.
So it just runs a tad bit better.
Particular cap to performance here on Steam Machine. We're well under 60 FPS. Returning to Bug Hill, Steam Machine performs significantly better when CPU limited. A 34.8 FPS average across the run on PS5.
This the biggest thing here.
FPS average on Steam Machine. So the Valve hardware has more legs, clearly. We're also CPU limited in the city of Baldur's Gate in Baldur's Gate 3, and here's where things get weird. Using the default native Linux build, which is what we'll install if you download it, we're only 11% faster on Steam Machine versus PlayStation 5. However, force the use of Proton instead and use the original Windows code working through the translation layer, and we get a 24% improvement in performance against PlayStation 5. Larian did update Baldur's Gate 3 for Steam Deck, significantly improving CPU bound performance.
But the textures look off on this one though.
Those optimizations were deck specific to the detriment of other PC hardware. Put simply, if you're playing Baldur's Gate 3 on
the textures are off on the middle, on the Steam Machine in the middle though.
Proton here. It's an automatic 11% performance boost in this test versus the native Linux app. Graphics now, and in a world where the RX 7600 is broadly comparable to the PS5 GPU, we should expect the Steam Machine to fall a little short, but I didn't see anything that drastically concerned me, to be honest. Let's kick off with Black Myth Wukong. It's a good start because it's not a particularly great PS5 port, so it should favour Steam Machine. The widest delta sees the PS5 running 17 to 18% ahead of Steam Machine, while other areas can see a smaller lead for
and this is base PS5.
While elsewhere, we're looking at absolute parity. It's fascinating to see it actually. On average, it's a 3% lead for PlayStation 5, but this doesn't reflect the reality that on a moment-by-moment basis, it's much more variable.
Oh, man, dude. I don't know, man.
Next up, the classic Alan Wake 2 Chapter 2 stress test, and some interesting results here. In performance mode, we're looking at a 9% lead for the PS5 version. 55.3 FPS plays 50.7 FPS. Not exactly a gaping chasm, right? Alan Wake 2 isn't available on Steam, of course. I got it running by using the Heroic Launcher installed in Steam Machine's desktop mode.
The base PS5 runs some games better.
It's not just a console-like experience. Under the hood there, it is a full PC with full desktop access. We can also do like-for-like testing in Crimson Desert based on performance mode, and the GPU performance differential is more like 17% here in favor. instructions themselves are dynamic, which isn't an
That's
option
Forza,
on
huh?
PC.
No, what is this?
What I've done here is to show Steam Machine running the same sequence at native 4K on the same settings, and then at 1620p, which represents 75% of 4K resolution on both axes. We're way short of PS5 performance at a lot 4K, but almost there at 1620p.
Oh, they did it in 4K, yeah.
I think bandwidth is the issue here. Bandwidth is quite lavish on PlayStation 5 in comparison to Steam Machine. And even at 1620p, bandwidth-heavy effects can cause small frame rate drops. But, you know, 1620p still looks fine, and VRR basically would make this pretty much a non-issue. And actually, at this point, I'd like to show something else I quite like about Steam Machine and AMD GPUs in general. There's support for a wide range of output resolutions, 1800p, 1620p, just to name a couple.
Yeah.
As we're demonstrating here, we save a ton of performance, and on a 4K screen, especially in the living room at couch distances, you don't lose that much. In fact, the static HUD elements are more noticeably scaled. One final Steam Machine versus PlayStation 5 game test. 007 First Light. We have console equivalent settings direct from IO Interactive on this one, but we have got a bit of an issue. The PlayStation 5 version has dynamic resolution scaling from 720p to 1080p using FSR 3.1.5 to upscale to 4K. The PC version does not have DRS, and neither will it let you use FSR upscaling from 720p to 4K. You'd need an ultra performance mode there that is not an option in the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, the stresses that we're putting on the GPU here will vary even though the content is effectively matched. In the explosive airfield segment, we're kicking off a major chain reaction of destruction. It's one of the only GPU limited parts of the game where I've seen drops on PlayStation 5, so presumably we're at minimum 720p DRS at this point. FSR 3 performance mode on Steam Machine has the same internal resolution, but less FSR GPU demands, since we're only upscaling to 1440p, not 4K. And there are small dips here both on PlayStation 5 and on Steam Machine, running internally at 720p on FSR 3 performance mode. Meanwhile, FSR 3 balance mode has a higher internal resolution and drops to between 48 to 50.
So basically, it can run
PC doesn't get
AAA games at 1440p, but not at great performance.
But at the same time,
because none of those performance, none of those were like 60 frames, dude.
Here's another test where we're testing streaming. PS5 can drop a few frames here and there, which does kind of suggest a CPU bottleneck. It's a clean 60 FPS with FSR 3 performance mode on Steam Machine, and what must be the occasional GPU limit on balance mode. Either way, both Steam Machine variations here do run smoother.
I mean, it's technically stronger than the Steam Deck,
the extra
so
performance is making itself known. But with that said, in our PC performance review, we noted some issues with crowds on the PC version that don't manifest on PlayStation 5. It's slight, but it's borne out in this shot. Locked on PlayStation 5, dropping frames on Steam Machine. And it doesn't really matter what resolution or upscaling factor you choose, you'll still get with ultra settings, especially on Unreal Engine 5 titles. And that you keep in mind that Valve only supplies 8GB of memory for the Steam Machine GPU. Yes, there are optimizations there, and as work is ongoing there at Valve, I decided to test this in depth at another time, but reasonably, we can only expect these mitigations to go so far. Compared to a GPU with more RAM. Of course, RDNA 4 and some kind of 9060 XT level GPU with 12 gigs of VRAM would have been better, but this is a machine built to a budget that was then torpedoed by the storage and memory crisis. For as long as games are built to look good and run well on PlayStation 5, I'd say that Steam Machine should be capable of producing comparable results, with flexibility in resolution, upscaling, and yes, frame generation options, delivering opportunities for Steam Machine users that PlayStation 5 gamers won't have. So let's try to bring everything together. When Steam Machine was first revealed, the question was all about price and performance. Based on specs, we've arrived...
Yeah, so, like, what... My only thing with it, right? My only thing with this thing is that I love the small form factor. The biggest thing with it is a console. I'm really curious to how it runs emulators. So I want to see people do tests and stuff with emulators and on there, because that's going to be the biggest thing I use that console for. I'm not going to use it. I wasn't planning on using it like for AAA games unless I want to get some extra time in to where I have it hooked up in my living room and play it. But I mean, shoot, if I buy this, I might as well buy a PS5 Pro, you know what I mean? But But yeah, man, the price, dude. The price, dude. Man, that's a lot. That's a lot, man. $1,000, and that's without the controller. With the controller, it's $1,200. Might as well say 1,200. And the 2 TB version is that's the one people are most likely gonna want. It's 1,400. It's still gonna sell, but I mean, man, dude, for me, I'm going to have to hold out. I'm going to have to hold out. I'm definitely going to get it. It depends on if they even make more of them because I don't know how fast this thing is going to sell out. Because the only reason I say I would have gotten it like at launch if it was 800 or 700, I probably would have got it at launch. But it's comparable as far as when it comes to AAA games. It's comparable to a base PS5. Yeah, I would have liked it to at least been somewhat comparable to a Pro. Cause the Pro what 900? Yeah, the Pro is 900, and the Pro is better than this thing. Like the base PS5 can beat this thing at certain levels, and it's $1,200. So that's a hefty price, man. Granted, it is a PC. Yeah, you got Linux and it's a PC. You can put other stuff on there, but man, god dog, man, this RAM shortage is really is killing us, man. It's killing us. It's killing us. So I don't know. I think what I'm gonna do is because I was wanting. I wonder if I can build like a machine to full like for I can put like, or I have to wait it out until the Steam machine gets cheaper, maybe. But man, god dog, yeah, $1,000 I can't do it. I can't do it for $1,000 because I mean I already have like my PC and stuff like that that I can play here. I was looking for something small form factor to play like on my TV or my bedroom TV, to where I can play like console or my emulators on. But I just don't know how well this thing runs emulators either. So I really want to see somebody do some videos of how it runs emulators because I know how emulators run on the Steam machine. I mean on Steam Deck, so I would surmise that it's probably comparable to that, depending on how far up the generations you go. Well, I assume that PS3 emulators they'll probably have a little bit of hard time, but anything under that, PS2, stuff like that, I wonder if because it can probably play like the recomps. I wonder how well it won recomps. See, that's stuff that I would really, really want to test on it, man. That stuff I would really want to test on it. But anyway, the Steam Deck is about to be out, y'all. Y'all let me know in the comments. Are y'all getting it? For me, right now, probably not. I'm not going to get it right now. It's not a necessity right now, man. You know what I mean? It's definitely gonna be my preservation machine if I end up getting one and I have to hook up hard drives and stuff to it. But yeah, probably not going to get it just yet. I'm going to wait a little bit. This RAM shortage is getting worse, and I think it really skyrocketed its thing. I think this thing was originally supposed to be around $700. $749 or something like that, and then it just skyrocketed it up to $300 something, dude, to make it 1,000. That's crazy. That's crazy. I think I read somewhere that initially that yeah they wanted that price to be around $700 for everybody can get their hands on it and use it. But yeah, man, that $1,000 price tag. Dang, I was not going to expect them to go to $1,000. So that definitely speaks to how much the next PlayStation is going to cost. If because I doubt it's going to be 800, but yeah, man, $1,000. Man. All right, y'all. Well, that's it for this video, man. Y'all let me know in the comments. Are y'all picking up the Steam Machine, joining the wait list? Are y'all gonna pick it up and let me know what y'all planning on using it for? Are you gonna be using it for your like the AAA titles? Are you gonna be using it for like how I'm using it for, which is like a game preservation type deal to put like emulators and stuff like that and old school games on it? Or are you just gonna be using it as a PC? Some people are gonna use it as like a small form PC. So let me know in the comments, man. As always, Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys on the next one. I'm out. Peace.